Welcome to Hardin Park's 5th grade Stories from Hurricane Helene. This episode is a collection of unscripted stories from a group of 5th graders who experienced the devastation of Hurricane Helene firsthand. Join us as we listen to their unique perspective on the storm, its aftermath, and the resiliency they've shown in the face of adversity.
The day of the hurricane, I woke up earlier than everyone else in my house, and we already didn't have internet, but the power wasn't out yet, and I already saw a lot of trees down out of my window. And so, right before my parents woke up, the power went out, the lights just flickered off, and then everybody woke up after that. And then nothing else really happened that day, but the next day, we took my dog out just to go see what's going on, and there was 7 feet of flooding below my neighborhood, and but my dog loved it. Her new nickname is Hurricane Millie. So the next day, I went out to go help my neighbors, lift their carpet up because their basement flooded, and after that, we didn't have food. We hadn't been to the grocery store in a long time. So I walked with my mom to the grocery store, and on our way back, we ran into Miss Cottrell, and she gave us a ride home, which was nice. And then after that, we were able to get out of the neighborhood and go sleep over at our grandma's house until it was over.
So my Nana came to visit me and my cousins after the hurricane happened. My Nana showed me a few pictures, and I'm still confused on how water literally broke a bunch of structures. And also, why did they have to shut Walmart, and why can't it just open again? And also, how can it break one concrete bridge? And also, my Nana lost power. And Scraps hated water because they had to evacuate Boone. And Scraps did not like the water, but he had to go through it. I feel very bad for him.
Homes were destroyed, and I remember my mom taking me out to serve everyone that lost everything. And I also remember water rushing down my backyard, and I was kind of scared. And so I remember my driveway filling up with water, and then all of a sudden, it just collapsed, and we had a landslide right in the driveway, and it was really scary.
When I was asleep, I slept till about 8 o'clock. My dad yelled, "Riley, we need your help. There's a river." So I went to the living room window. Well, and I didn't believe it. A river was in front of our house. That was about 10 feet tall, and we saw people kayaking down. This was crazy, and I had to save my Nana, and I saw a lot of horrible things, and I saw a car that was crushed and with a toolbox on top of it and a truck on its nose. And then I saw that my balcony to my river was completely gone. It wasn't there anymore. And then to my second house, I didn't have a basement anymore. And I had to save my Nana from it. It was down power lines, down trees, and a lot of stuff. So we were able to get back safely. We were very fortunate with our first home I live in now. But I just thought that was really crazy, and this never happened. This has never happened.
The power went out for a couple hours, but my family's house was fine, and our grandparents' house had a lot of trees in it, so we had to go help them.
Wednesday, the creek next to our apartments started to flood and get into the parking lot. And then on Thursday morning, the parking lot was starting to flood, and then within the next 3 hours, it was really bad. Then the next day, we lost power, and then on Saturday, we went to my grandma's house, which is in High Point, and then I just basically stayed there for 2 weeks, basically just playing video games and watching TV.
After Hurricane Helene hit, I went with my mom to a hospital where she was called for. When we got there, they started dropping people off in helicopters, and most people there, they didn't have many good clothes, and we did a lot. And my mom had 112 hours of work that week, and when we got back, we saw the river. It was a good 10 feet higher and broke out of like the little slope it was in. And I could see about like 3 dead deer carcass. It was like one or two was a doe, and one was like a really big buck. Missed that buck.
At my house, my creek went up like 4 feet, and at one point my yard was like pretty much a river. Our house had like a couple leaks from the roof, and we lost power, internet, and water.
During Hurricane Helene, our family was fine. Nothing happened to our house, and we thought the water, since it rained a lot, and our driveway the garage usually gets filled with water. It didn't this time, so we were glad, but we were also sad because my sister was working at the hospital because she does phlebotomy, and she had to stay over at night and sleep there because she couldn't get back home.
When the storm happened, my road flooded, and I also lost power for 2 days. I also lost internet for 2 weeks, and I saw that my creek flooded, and I also had to fill my tub with water.
I remember waking up before the hurricane, and I ate breakfast, and it was raining really hard. And then the power went out, and I lost power for a week. And there was a mudslide in my driveway and a tree that fell in our yard.
My house was not damaged, but my grandma's had internet before I did, and we didn't have internet for 3 weeks. And then when I came, I saw like a big limb on her deck, and it broke her hot tub and her deck.
On Wednesday, I was at soccer practice, and there was a big storm coming. I didn't think much of it at the time. And then on Thursday, I woke up. I remember my mom saying that, power is out and there's a really big storm coming. After that, I was just sitting in my room waiting for stuff to go out. And when it finally did, I went out in the living room. I was just looking out the window most of the day, waiting, watching. Then about 2 hours later, a tree fell down. It's like a foot from hitting one of the main support beams for our house. I remember after that, we all just stayed there. When the storm finally finished, we all went outside, started cleaning up our road. At that time, we had noticed that our neighbor's entire driveway had collapsed.
So my sister's floor flooded. I lost internet. I was losing my sanity those couple of days because there was barely anything I could do, and pretty much my dad took me for a drive around my town, and all the houses were pretty much devastated. There was not much left of any house. I only saw like 2 houses even a little bit intact. The rest were just destroyed. And it was very, very weird seeing all the wreckage or like the stuff that happened because of the hurricane, because I never saw it before. Because I never seen a hurricane happen in my area before. And pretty much I got lucky because my house didn't get hurt at all except for my sister's floor getting flooded. And it was very, very, very devastating. It was very menacing too.
knowing now the power of a hurricane like that.
When the hurricane hit, we lost internet and a few branches fell down. We lost power for a little bit and water. We bought some bottles of water to drink. On Friday, we still did not have internet and some water leaked in our basement. And some people stayed at my house for a little bit.
When I first woke up, it was exciting because we didn't have school and I was gonna play video games with my friends. But as soon as I looked out the window, everything changed because the whole yard was flooded and all the houses around were like almost underwater. And we were fine, but we had to get my neighbors out because their house flooded.
When the hurricane hit, my wind chime broke and I lost power for like less than an hour. But I'm an uncle to someone and their entire like apartment got destroyed. But I was fine and they were fine because they were staying at my house.
After Helene hit, nothing really happened. The only thing that my sister didn't really like, that it was her birthday and she couldn't celebrate it. So a week or two after they said we could drive, we went to Walmart and we saw that it was flooded and everything was bad. And then on the way there, we also saw two cars that crashed into each other, and both of the top and the front of the car were just blown off. We didn't have electricity for 20 minutes, which that was very lucky for us. We volunteered at Watauga High School for the people that needed some food for free. And we had 1 week with no internet or any Wi-Fi that we could probably connect to someone that they need help.
We didn't have internet. During the hurricane, my mom had to go save somebody. She had to go save her friend Abby because they live in a trailer park and their house flooded like really bad where they lived. Like the whole trailer park flooded and they had to get like evacuated and go on boats. And then they went to like the very top of the road and then her friend swam all the way to my mom's car.
When I woke up this morning, there was a big flood happened. When all of a sudden, a big storm crashed in through our house, and all of our electronics got disappeared. It was bad, so very bad, that my dog Piper was scared. Well, it did happen. When it crashed in for our bridge, we saw some damage, and we were scared. It was terrifying for us.
My story is that I didn't have clean water, but we still had water that we could boil, so it was kind of like warm. But my dad's helped a lot of people trying to get trees off their houses, and so we've had a lot of wood to like split. And yeah, I'm really thankful that I'm really lucky to have power. My internet cuts off and on, and water, and yeah.
So the tornado hit our house, hurricane, and everything was floating. We didn't know what to do, so we called our cousins so we can go to their house and stay. And so we went, and we stayed there for a week, and then we find a house.
When Hurricane Helene hit, our power went out for about 30 minutes, and then after that, everything came back on. And we just drank our bottled water for a really long time, and we got tons of food from places. And we went over to Lowe's, and we were just going to return something, but they just gave us tons of food because they didn't know if
we needed it or not. And that was a story for me.
When Hurricane Helene last hit, I lost power, internet, and water. I had multiple trees down in my neighborhood, and my neighbor was stuck at their house. A landslide went down my road and created a waterfall, and my dog escaped about 3 times.
My story of the hurricane is that I lost power, I had no internet, my basement flooded, we gave food and drinks to our neighbors and other people. Me and my family helped people who needed food. I'm thankful that we made it out okay.
On Friday morning, I lost power and we got power back the next week after on Friday, and I helped my church.
When Hurricane Helene hit, I was very scared because we thought a tree almost hit our house, and we heard it, so we all had to evacuate the house, and we were so scared because we thought we wouldn't have our house anymore.
My story is that I lost power and internet, and I had to boil my water before any of my family used it. Also, I called my best friend and we played Survive a Tornado on Roblox at like 5 a.m.
My hurricane story is I didn't have internet for a week, and I didn't have water for a couple of days, and my dad's Airbnb got hit by a landslide.
When I was going down to go play in my yard, and me and my brother were playing, and we saw this big giant holes in the ground everywhere, and we had to do a bunch of stuff to get it. We had to use sticks and dirt to fill up those holes, like for now, just to get them working.
My story was when the hurricane hit, we lost power for 3 days, and we lost water for 1 day. And some of my neighborhood didn't have water when we did, so my dad connected a lot of hoses, and he put it out to our driveway, and he made a sign that said water, so the other people in our neighborhood would see, and they can bring buckets and stuff to fill it up. And my dad has been helping out a lot with giving generators to people high in the mountains, and we went down to the Greenway and cleared out a big bridge with 2 trees that fell on it.
I lost power for 5 days. I still had water though, and my neighborhood was under a boil water advisory. And my dad's friend's house was completely flooded, so they had to stay at our house for a day.
We did not get affected, so we were safe, and also I saw my aunt and my dog, who is in South Carolina, is safe, and is safe.
My story is that my power did not go out, it was my internet that did. And 3 trees fell on our house, and there was also a river coming down through our road.
So I lost internet for only a couple days, and I volunteered at churches.
After it stopped raining, I played in the water, but before that, I was just staying inside, just watching the rain, and that's it.
So my story is that I was at a friend's during the hurricane, and our power went on and off a few times, and our water was out for 2 days, and we had to boil it after that, and our internet went out for about a week, and we saw a tree fall on somebody's car.
My story is the day the hurricane hit at around 7 a.m., I lost internet. 15 minutes later, I lost power. 6 hours later, I got power. Half a week later, I picked up my grandma from Banner Elk, and they were living with me for around 2 weeks. They left not long before the current time. There's also a landslide at the bottom of my driveway.
On the first night, there was a hurricane alert, and then
I woke up and my nightlight was off and I got mad, and then my sisters and I were in the hallway talking about why the lights went off, and my mom told us the power went off, and then a tree fell in my backyard, and I helped my dad grill our food for dinner, and then we went to bed, and the next day we still didn't have power. Then my grandma got power, so we went to stay with her for 2 days, and then our power came back on, and then I was out of school for a long time.
En mi casa no pasó nada, solo que no tuve internet 2 días y el internet.
So we lost power very early in the morning because it was getting very dark outside. And we spent most of the day doing puzzles, playing games, but later in the afternoon we had to go to our basement to pail out a lot of water. We didn't have any water because we had no power, no internet. So we lost like $100 in paying for gas and getting water. And while we waited for my dad to come back, my mom told me a story. My mom told me a story about this kid she met. This is like later after the hurricane. She told us a story about this little kid who watched his house get blown away, and it was very sad for him. But he went to the Appalachian State cafeteria, and they all knew it was his birthday. They gave him little toys and trinkets, and he said it was the best day ever. And my mom was super happy to see that. So yeah, that's what I wrote.
I was lucky enough I didn't lose power or water, but after the storm I went out and went to other towns like Banner Elk, and I would help people out at the high school. Me and my family went to pick up my grandma when they didn't have power, and my grandma and my grandpa stayed at home with the dogs, their dogs. Whenever the hurricane happened, I was driving with my dad to get to my dad's house, and then whenever we were driving, we saw a car got struck by lightning. Yeah, and we were able to make it to the house, and then the next day when it was all over, everything had no power, everything had no water, and we were stuck there for about like 5 days, and then we were able to get into this little tiny town, which were letting people into the gas station for like 2 at a time. But because I was there, they let 2 people and me and my dad in to get things. And then after that day, we were able to leave, but I couldn't get to my mom still. And so the next week, we still weren't able to escape to get to my mom's, and I was only supposed to stay there for 1 week. So then I was staying there for 2 weeks, and then I had to stay there for Monday and Tuesday, and then we had to go to Charlotte to be picked up.
So while the hurricane was hitting, I woke up to like a huge thud and a bunch of tree cracks. And I looked out the window, and like the little gravel walkway to our house steps was just a big creek. And Dad was in the basement because like there was like 3 inches of water in the basement, and we had to help sweep it out.
So I watched 20 houses wash down the river.
I was told that it was just going to be rain. Next thing I knew, I was walking down the street of Main Street, almost getting swept down the river, watching people go down in a wagon, and it flipped, and next thing we know, there's a helicopter trying to save this person from a rapidly fast river. And I am saving 2 businesses with my mom because there was like flooding, and we're trying to help them with sandbags. It was pretty crazy, and it was my birthday, so she got to see a ton of really crazy stuff. It was kind of crazy. And also, River Street had turned into complete river. And that's about it.
Me and my friend had to help out at App State, like clearing the rooms out. And at the end of it, we started handing out water and candy to everyone.
So we lost power really early, and then we got a text that night from my grandparents saying that they had evacuated, but we didn't know where they went. And finally we found them at their church, but we had to spend the whole next day clearing out their yard, and we didn't know if we were digging up their yard or the dirt that had been brought down. My uncle's basement got flooded, and we had a creek in our backyard turned into a huge river, but we were safe. And
during Hurricane Helene, a lot of things happened. Like my bedroom closet got soaked, my bathroom got soaked, 5 trees fell behind my house, my driveway was like a river, and at 3 a.m. my family got up and dug a big hole around our house, and that took 2 hours. I lost water for 5 days, internet for 7 days, and power for 1 day. After we cleaned up our house and put towels everywhere, we played in the rain and on our driveway that turned into a river and had really big rapids. I saw 15 trash cans float away in the intersection. It was like a river, and I saw a few cars get stuck, but overall I was safe. After the storm, I donated help bags and clothes. I worked at a place for 3 to 4 hours, sorting and carrying stuff. I cleaned an old senior center so people could sleep there, and that's my Hurricane Helene story.
My backyard was flooded, and there was a mini waterfall by my house, and my car almost got stuck in a body of water.
Our power went out at about lunchtime, and I basically played video games the whole time.
My experience was I had helped my neighbor and his basement, and some of his house flooded, even though his house is 50 to 100 feet away from the New River. Also, my dad's cows are there, and he had to let them out at 10:30, and the water kept coming up and up.
My parents didn't tell us that there was going to be a tornado, so I was just unprepared and I was just going to sleep. And then my parents call us downstairs to our basement and say there's a tornado, get downstairs. And I'm like, what is happening? And then when the night is over, they bring us upstairs, and then the night is over, and then the next day is just drenching with rain. We lost power on Friday, and we got it back around 3 weeks after that, and then we had internet for another week after that. So, yeah, and we just played games the entire time.
When the storm started, I was at home. My house has a river beside it, so it started flooding immediately, and my dad had to go check on properties, and me and my brothers played Monopoly, and that was a nightmare. We already lost power and internet, so we had nothing to do. We went to a gas station nearby and got food while we were there. There were so many car doors floating in the water. My Mimi's house had 2 feet of water in it, so we couldn't get to her, but she was okay. My house is next to a cow pasture, so the fence broke, but the cows were okay. After the hurricane, we had to clean up our whole street because all my family lives on one street, and it's pretty small, but me and my brothers had to clean up the whole thing with wagons, and there were a ton of debris everywhere. A tree fell behind my house and almost hit our house, but it wasn't as bad when the big pine tree hit our house, but yeah, and that's it.
During Hurricane Helene, our power, water, and Wi-Fi didn't work. Good thing that no water went in, but a tree did fall. But there was no damage. My dad drove to see what was happening, and on the way home, he saw a fallen tree that ripped out a chunk of land, and there was a lot of flooded areas.
I lost power for a day and a half, lost water for like 3 days, and then lost Wi-Fi for like a week and a half, and I had to help my mom clean out for one of the buildings at App State that got flooded. And then I got to
go around with one of my friends and throw water at people and candy. That's about it.
During Helene, my Wi-Fi and power went out. When it ended, me and my mom and dad went to go see a flooded road. Many houses were flooded or destroyed. I was just mostly at home and doing nothing.
At 6 o'clock, the first tree fell, and we had to go inside our pantry. I really hated it in there. After that, the first mudslide happened, so we went over to our neighbors, and when we got there, we made some really cool drawings, and my papa said our house was safe, so we got to go back.
My experience with Hurricane Helene was nature saying, no you don't, then humanity says, yes you do. Then humanity stumbles, but we get back up, and we build. And we rebuild, and everything, weeks, maybe months, maybe even years later, will be okay.
So this is my story during Hurricane Helene. So during the storm, we didn't really know what to do. We were just sort of sitting downstairs with no power, just as a family. We were just playing board games and card games every night, and then we had a grill which we were using to cook because none of our other appliances would work. And so eventually we managed to get power back, and then after that we decided to go help a friend. A tree had fallen on his house, and we were going to help clear it up and move it off. And so we got there, we came back, and then we went to another friend's house, and we helped them with also a tree in their yard. And we were going there to help them like clean stuff up in their house. And then after that, our fridge we had to clear everything out of it. And while we were doing all of this, we went to go to the grocery store, and the bridge to my house was almost completely destroyed. And so we decided that we probably shouldn't go over the cracked, barely hanging on bridge. And so we tried the other road. The other road wasn't much better, given the fact that people were going out into the street, and to keep power lines off the road, picking them up and propping them up with sticks. And this whole time, I had new barn cats named Jelly and Jam, and they were outside during the storm, and we didn't know that if they were okay or not. And so we went to check on them and do all that stuff. Then we found a coyote eating their food, and so we had to scare him off. And then eventually they came back, because they'd gone farther up the hill that our house is on to a neighbor's property to wait out the storm. And then after the storm was over, we just sort of assessed the situation. King Street had completely flooded, and it was pretty bad down there. And so my dad and my mom shoveled some mud out of the roads and areas. And then that leads us to now, where I'm recording this about Hurricane Helene.
All right, so we were fine for the first couple of hours during the flood. Then we lost power for 5 hours. Then it came back on for about 3. Then we lost it for another one, and for a whole night. And then it came back on in the morning. Then it lost it again around lunch, and it just stayed off for a while. And my mom had it, and we just went to our aunt's house, and we spent the night there because it's like we had no power, we had no running water, we didn't have anything. And then when we went home, we volunteered at the high school because we didn't think we knew that a lot of people did not have a lot of stuff that they needed. Like someone was saying,
King Street, it was just underwater. And I was watching a video of this guy in a town truck driving through through the water on King Street, and I was like, why would you do that? It's just getting more water inside the shops because it's pressing it up against the windows by the waves. And that annoyed me. And then the annoy went away pretty fast because I watched the video of I-40 collapsing. And I was like, oh, dang. And I saw the news report. It said at least 30,000 people fall off I-40. And I was like, dang, this hurricane has really attached to the mountains. And it's really unusual for us to get this much hurricane, like, what do you call it? Like, rain. Thank you. Because usually all we have is rain. We don't get a bunch of floods everywhere. All we get is the rain, and the coast and the Piedmont gets all the bad stuff. But this time it came up into us, and once it makes landfall, it has to go back into the water to get more power. And I'm just glad that everyone pitched in to help.
The night before, my dad thought the power would go out, so we got some flashlights. And then we woke up the day after we got flashlights, and then we just saw like what it happened to like some of the road down below us. And after we saw that, we took a tiny bit of we walked a little to see what has happened fully. And it was really scary because the water was just ongoing. And after that, we went back in and then just tried, we would look on different, my dad would look on Facebook and stuff to see what has happened, since we didn't want to risk it, to see what has happened to the rest of Boone. When we saw, we just got scared because a lot of buildings were collapsing. And then the second day of it, we got food and resources.
My story was hard. A bunch of old trees fell down in our backyard, and there was a big flood on the driveway, and it was very crazy.
I personally was not affected severely, minus a tree inches away from my house, but for some it may just look like bad rain, but for others it was everything being lost, no water, no power. Around 3,000 deaths. Mountains are not supposed to get hurricanes like this. I can't put it into words. Those who did not experience it could never know how bad it is in a million years.
My story with Hurricane Helene was, I looked out my window, my road was flooding, so we decided to take an apple cart to go to a shelter. The apple cart road, or the road that the apple cart was taking, was flooding, so we got off, we went back to our house, and then the water was getting inside, so then we went to the church down the road and stayed there for 6 or 7 hours until we came back because all the water was gone. Didn't have power for a week.
So I was in the rain because there was no internet or power in my house. Me and my sister were so bored that we sat in the rain for 2 hours straight. It was so funny how we were sitting in the rain for 2 hours and talking to my sister, soaking wet and cold. So then we went out to my grandparents' house because we had to go pick them up, and it was really bad over there because the road had cracked. So we had to go pick them up. And so then when we went to go pick them up, my grandpa was talking about in the car how the hurricane might have been worse than Hurricane Katrina, which really got me speechless. So after we got home, the water turned back on. So we made hot chocolate for everybody because it was freezing in the house.
I lost power for a week and a half, and we could not connect with my aunt for a while, and we were very worried. Our neighbors had a generator, so we went to their house to charge our devices, shower, and cook. But then their generator ran out of propane, so we were back on square one. Then it got a lot better. We were able to go out and serve our community. Helene is something we will always remember.
During the hurricane, I had to go to my mom's work and got stuck there for about 10 hours. Eventually, my dad got there and picked me and my brothers up to take us to Chapel Hill. We were there for the rest of the hurricane. Then we came back, and I went to my grandfather's house for a little while. Then I mostly just went to a camp at school and hung out with my friends. That was my hurricane experience.
During the hurricane, I felt really happy because we were out of school and got the break, but really sad because the reason we were out of school. I felt like Hurricane Helene confused a lot of people, but I love how we came together as a community to help and rebuild. I thought it was great to see something amazing come out of something so hard, and I'm proud of Boone for getting through it.
My experience with Hurricane Helene is we lost power for 1 week and our fireplace leaked. And then we helped my best friend because she lost everything, so I helped clean up her house.
It started out fine, then the power went out. We came back home and we were fine. We had water. It had rained but hardly. After a few nights before the hurricane, there was a tornado. Our creek was 6 feet high. We saw a house come down the creek. I got really tired, so I slept for days. I had hardly eaten. One day, my dad got sick, and my parents were arguing, so we went to Winston to get a hotel. I thought it was a dream. I knew it was going to be okay.
We didn't have power, and we were bored, so we went to go find some grocery stores that were open, and we found a bunch of waters, but they almost ran out, and we needed a lot of food. There was nothing there, and and there was no water.
My power went out, my creek got to my house, a tree fell on my neighbor's house, and a tree fell on my road, and we couldn't get out for 2 days.
My story is that the power was back in 3 hours, and also the Wi-Fi came back. Water was not coming out for a long time, so we went to my friend's house at Charlotte. And we stayed the night there, and the other day we went to Carolyn's with my friends. Then we went fishing in the lake at Charlotte. We came back home, volunteered at the church, and watched the Korean TV show at home and started learning the bass. Then went ice skating at Charlotte with also my friends, and then cut some broken down trees at the church, and now.
So when the hurricane came, we had no power for 2 weeks. It was bad. We couldn't get out where we live at. The water came over our bridge. It didn't take it out, thank God. So when the water died down, it was good, but we couldn't get out because the road was really, really bad. So we had to go to the end of the road. There was a house that had a piece of equipment there. The key was left in it. We kind of commandeered it so we could fix the road so people could get out. We still had no power. We could get out then. So then where you come down where we commandeered the piece of equipment, you couldn't get down the bridge because the one side was washed out. So we were stuck there for a week. Then after the week, we got out.
When the rain started, me and my mom and sister woke up and brushed our teeth, and I found out the power was out and no Wi-Fi.
My power went out. My creek overflowed. Which made my basement flood. My power went back on. A huge tree fell in my yard. My power went back on. Then we started volunteering.
power went back off, went back on in the morning.
So when I woke up, after like 5 minutes, the power went off. And then I went into the living room. I was going to watch my TV, but there was no internet, no power, no nothing. I asked my dad what happened, and he said, it's a hurricane. And I was like, oh, I was just like sad. And at the same time, I was nervous because people lost their house. That's what I heard from my mom. And she lost one of her friends. And after that, I was just like, I just looked outside. There was so much rain, water everywhere. There was just too much.
As we wrap up this episode, we want to say that Hurricane Helene really changed a lot for our community and for us personally. We've talked about the tough times we face, but also about how strong we can be when we stick together. This experience showed us how important it is to be prepared and to help one another. Let's remember these lessons as we keep moving forward, supporting each other along the way. Thanks for listening, and we hope our stories encourage you to take action in your own community. And please remember that we all are...
Strong!